The WRC Dialogues is a series of platforms where we can get South Africa to start talking about the water issues in a manner that goes beyond the benchtop of the laboratories, in a manner that takes us away from our comfort zones in our advocacy groups into a joint discussion, an indaba if you like, where we will grapple with the issues and we will organize for ourselves to tease them out in such a manner that the solutions become more obvious. Now, we want these dialogues to have a particular kind of character. And these four elements that I'm going to talk about are actually critical to that character. The first thing that we want with these dialogues is that these dialogues have to be inclusive. And today represents some of that inclusivity. That we want folk from governments or levels of government, folk from communities, water practitioners, and academia and the research establishment to come together in this discussion. We want to have this discussion with local players, and we want to have this discussion with international players. And we have some of that flavor in our discussions today, as you will see later in the program. The second critical thing is that what we talk about must organize itself to build decisions on good information. So we're looking for a research-based approach. This is the contribution that organizations like the Water Research Commission can make. That what we want to do is that the decision-making must be sitting on a body of knowledge that makes sense, that makes scientific sense, and it must have a long-term view. Far too many decisions we make today in this country and in many places in the world is based on reacting to an immediate crisis as opposed to a long-term approach. And in most cases based on inadequate information, and in many times in desperation. So what these dialogues are intended to do is to increase both the levels of information available so that people who need to make these decisions can sit on a platform that helps them, and secondly, to organize to have a longer term view than tomorrow or next Tuesday. The third aspect of the dialogue is that the dialogue has to be critical. And this is crucially important. You know, we sit in a world today post 9/11 where essentially the world was bludgeoned into a way of thinking. That examining things in certain perspectives had become taboo. In the way media reported on certain things became taboo. I mean, we have a vibrant discussion in this country about the secrecy bill. Well, the biggest secrecy bill happened in 2011. In the United States and spread throughout most of the Western world, where there was a curbing of what people could say, what people could talk about, and what people could even think about. We need to break out of that mode. Because unless we are critical about what we're looking at, unless we examine the problematique in a decisive manner, we are not going to be able to get to the creative solutions and the innovative solutions. This doesn't mean that we have to be insensitive to other folk. It doesn't mean that we have to be anarchists, but it does mean that we have to use the depth of our abilities to examine the problems that we're engaging with. And the fourth and perhaps most important feature of the dialogues in all its forms is that we are bringing people together and we are leaving the political correctness outside the door. We are here to be frank with one another. We are here to be candid because we think it is important to do so. It's something that we've become desperately short of in the last little while, is the ability to be candid around a range of issues. So we're hoping that today, and in the character of the discussions that happen later on in the day, we will embrace all of these values and carry those through the dialogues. But maybe the most important thing about the dialogues is that we're in a solution-oriented mode. Now, people can score many points in many dimensions by being critical and critical alone. In fact, critique has become currency, political currency in our environment. Now, there's a place for that, and it's important to have that, but that's not the design of these dialogues. The design of these dialogues is to examine the issues, tease out the difficult points, and then see if we can put our minds together around what the potential solutions are going to be. Now the dialogues are going to take three very important shapes. One of those is called the Wat-Indabas, and the Wat-Indabas are closed sessions with restricted invitations on Chatham House rules. We want to create a space, and Inga will tell you later on in the day about some of the events coming up, a space where people can come together around rather difficult issues, rather sensitive issues, but in a protected environment, with no fear of being quoted outside the room to get to the grips of the issues that we're engaging with. The second of those is a much more public platform, and this is the first of our water current policy series, where we have a seminar format and bring in some speakers, engage a discussion, and organize ourselves around very public solutions. And the third, and we're going to have some big ones in this domain in the next little while, is the Khuluma Sizwe series, where we're talking about very prominent people in the water domain who will be delivering public lectures. And we think that a combination of these is going to organize for ourselves to organize the right kinds of discussions to happen around water issues inside our country. And this is all part of an important strategy of the Water Research Commission. And our strategy in the next 5 years is carved around something we call the knowledge tree. Now, folk are quite familiar with the middle of the knowledge tree, and this is what the WRC is doing very well for the last 40 years or so, is that the WRC generates knowledge, and generates good knowledge. To give you a statistic, which I think is quite telling, is that with research overall, South Africa is just less than 0.5% of global share of papers on an index called the ISI. Now this is reasonable because there's a correlation between that and the population of the country. In the area of water, South Africa produces 1.69% of the global share. It is more than 3 times the national average for research overall, which means in the water research domain, South Africa punches way above its weight and does extremely well and is globally recognized for doing so. And we must continue to do that. But we're organizing to put that knowledge to use. So in the spheres that you see surrounding the knowledge generation is what we're looking at. That we want the work that happens by the WRC and the WRC partners, and there are many, many partners of the WRC, including all of the universities, various other research institutions, and various international partners. That knowledge must be developed into sustainable development solutions for our country. The knowledge must be used to inform policy and decision making. The knowledge must lead to valorization, and that's new products and services in a very real way for economic and social development. We need to develop through our projects human capital in the water sector as well as the science and technology sector. And our projects must lead to empowerment of communities in a very direct way and transformation and redress in accordance with the National Transformation Agenda.